Welcome back to Hoops HT, everybody. It is Thursday, December 5th. That means it is time for Under the Radar.
It
I'm your
is. Yes.
little old school Under the Radar. I think for the second straight week on old school, just
Yeah.
me and the puppet, unfortunately. I'm your host,
Yeah.
Chad Sherwood. That thing over there is David Griggs.
Yes. This is not only is it old school because it's just me and you as it was when we started this, but it's an old school Thursday night recording instead of Wednesday. So
Yeah,
all
which
kinds of
was
old school. Rocco's in San Francisco. I tweeted a video of him landing right on the highway, in his private jet going to the San Francisco St. Louis game tonight. I don't know what everybody else is doing. Stalik is probably yelling at his television. Uh, what's everybody else doing? I don't even know.
I think Dorman had to work late tonight.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know where anybody else is. Well,
Yeah, who
but
cares?
I guess we'll have a quick show tonight. All right, thanks for
Yeah,
joining us. Oh, no, we do got to
yeah.
go fix some games. Under the radar. Riggs, what the hell does it mean to be under the radar?
The layman's definition is that it is the 23 leagues that typically only get one bid. We don't really like to call it that because there's no rule that says those leagues only get one bid. They can get, depending on how well they do out of conference, eight or nine or as many as the Power Five. But more often than not, they get the one bid. So we're not talking about the Power Four. We're also not talking about the other multi-bid leagues, which are the Big East, the American, albeit maybe not this year, the Mountain West, the A10, albeit maybe not this year, and the West Coast.
Okay. Our other disqualifiers, any team that happens to be in the top 25 of either two major polls, we consider that
Yes.
team not to be under the radar, although the rest of its conference is. We're not there yet. We might get there in another week or two, but
Yeah.
if a couple of these
Drake
teams
is
keep
moving
winning,
up. What are they up to 31, 32 right now?
yeah,
They're moving up. They're getting close.
they're not quite in the top 25 polls yet, but we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But we also like to start, we'll go through the conferences in alphabetical order, other than we start with a feature conference that I tend to pick about, 30 seconds before I send out the Zoom
Yeah.
invites. Uh, and taking a quick look today, I thought it might be a fun night to start in the SoCon, Griggs, where
Oh
where
yeah.
here's a team that is not getting any votes in either polls, but I've been pretty darn impressed with this Furman team. Uh,
Yeah.
Coming off a
Well,
win
it's
at Gulf Coast last night, actually.
yeah, a really nice road win there. Overall 8-1 on the season, albeit two of those were non-D1 opponents, but a fairly solid net. How about that the WAB, that new metric, or I don't know how new it is, but it's kind of new to me.
I'm sorry, we
Up in
lost
the
the screen share
30s.
there. See
Yeah,
there? Let's
like
say
we
let me
said it.
take 3 seconds as I get the screen share back here.
Yeah.
The WAB. This is the new metric the NCAA is using starting this year. It means wins above the bubble. Basically, how to explain what it is the NCAA creates a hypothetical, a mythical team that is 45th ranked in the net or
Yeah.
so, just squarely on the bubble. Uh, for and then what they do is they say if you if that team, what would be that team's chances of winning or losing each game that you actually play on your schedule? So
Yeah.
I'll pull up Furman's team sheet right here on the
Okay.
left. So what would that 45th ranked team be expected to do against Seattle, Belmont, Florida Gulf Coast, Jacksonville, Tulane, Kansas, Charleston Southern, that schedule?
Yeah.
And based on how well you perform compared to that mythical team and how
Mhm.
and what their percentage chance of winning games provides you with an actual WAB number, a raw number. The
Right.
NCAA ranks everybody's raw numbers 1 through 364 and comes up with the fact that Furman pretty darn good actually. They're 31st of the nation there,
Yeah.
30th non-conference WAB. There we go, non-conference WAB
hmm
also.
And it's a really interesting concept. To try and explain it a little more simply for people that are,
I totally lost what I said. You got it.
yeah,
I got it. I
notice
got
smart. But yeah, they create a team. I don't want to say in the aggregate, but they create what is essentially the 45th ranked team in the net. It is the net, right? That they use, and
Net. Yes, net.
yes, and they essentially somehow with that mythical team, and this is where it gets a little confusing and it's hard to replicate the way you could a metric where you know all the data. But what is the win probability of your opponents and under those circumstances against the 45th team? So if Seattle was playing the 45th team on the neutral floor, what would their win probability be? Like,
And the 45th team would be favored to win that game.
yes, by quite a bit. So
Right.
you
And
would
as you get,
get, yeah,
well, that's why if you look at Furman here, they have beaten everybody. And anybody, the 45th best team should have beaten everybody that Seattle Furman did, and they did
yeah,
beat them. And that team will be probably expected to lose at Kansas, which Furman did. So
yeah.
that's they've played as well as the 45th best team in the nation.
Yeah, and that is why their web wins against the bubble, the WAB, is what it is. So it's kind of a fascinating metric. Like the
Actually,
45th
look,
team would probably win at Belmont. They went and won at Belmont, and that's a good win, winning at
yeah,
Belmont.
yeah, you
I mean, that's not nothing.
Greg, so look on the right there. We've got Samford up, another SoCon team. They had that loss at Cornell. The 45th best team would probably win that game. And what does that result with? They're 101st. They don't
Yeah.
have as nearly as good of a WAB as
Hmm.
Furman.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
although a
this,
lot,
yeah.
I would say that there is so few data points still at this point. I would probably need about another month or so of season to really let these numbers flesh out. So, like any other metric.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like any other metric, and the one thing that we don't know, we're going to investigate this. I do know that we have some contacts with some staffers and some committee members. Uh, with this being a first-time metric, how will the committee value it? Will they use it as much as the net as little? I tend to think that while it's going to be another tool at their disposal, it's still going to be the same process of how hard was it to win the games that you won. We're just trying to
You know,
figure that out.
Ken
Yeah.
Palm ratings, BPI, Torvik
Yes.
rankings, API, SOR, all those numbers are on the team sheets. I've
Yes.
never heard a committee member afterwards talk about one of those metrics as being the deciding factor.
Right.
I
It
don't
never
think we're
is.
going to now what that we hear them talk about.
Yeah.
Your push your opponent's nets because that helps that creates your quadrants in your team sheets. But I don't think they're
Yeah.
going to. I don't think it's going to be much more than those other metrics at the end of the day. But we'll see if they start walking it up
Yeah.
in February and March. We'll see.
Yeah.
Uh,
And Furman, probably I mean, some other teams to watch for. Other than Furman, I know Chattanooga, they did start off 0-3. They've won 4 out of 5 since then, although they did drop their last game, something that they should have won. I still think that they're going to make quite a new bit of
yeah,
noise.
they got blown out by Lipscomb actually at home. That
Yeah.
was kind of a disappointing.
Yeah, it really was a disappointing showing, kind of a surprise too. Nothing against Lipscomb. We're going to talk about them probably here in a few minutes. But yeah, Samford, I want to give a shout out to them. They're clearly not as good as they were a year ago, but to me, this is a sign of a strong program, Chad. When you can have the kind of year they did last year, lose a lot of key pieces from that team, and come back and still be pretty good. 6-2. I think that they're certainly at least meeting expectations, if not succeeding them. Bucky ball has not gone away. It's still here.
Another number to look at here, way at the top of the column there, we've been tracking this ASUN SoCon Challenge Series is 20 games total. SoCon now up with a 9-5 lead over the ASUN, so almost doubled them up. Not quite
Mhm.
SEC, ACC, but those conferences aren't under the radar, so we don't care
Yeah,
about
those conferences don't
them.
matter. They're not under the radar.
So the SoCon really looking good so far in that Challenge Series. Got a couple more weeks left in there. We'll continue to track that going forward. Uh,
Hmm.
Big game coming up Saturday, actually, Greg. It's kind of really interesting. Princeton at Furman.
That is a big one. Two really good under the radar teams. I've been kind of disappointed in Princeton from week to week. They had what I thought was, I mean, not to shift to the Ivy League, but they're starting to look like the team that I think we expected them to be. A really nice win at St. Joe's, and that is, if I would guess that both those teams are going to be in our top 10 at the end of the show. That is a big under the radar game. And that's one of those games to where if a team were, if one or both of these teams were to get inside the bubble, that's when they kind of need to win.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, let me pull the Furman profile up one more time here. I don't know that there's really a path to the bubble with Princeton and
Well,
a road trip to Harvard being all that's really left of your non-conference schedule. Um,
they'd have to pretty much win them all. Yeah.
but on the other hand, if you literally undefeated regular season in your conference and lost your conference title game, I think that type of team is always on the bubble, but
Yeah.
it's pretty rare.
Hmm.
Let me, as I get my sip of water here, jump over to, let's go back to the America East.
Yeah.
Uh, and over the America East, I think we got to talk a little bit about the Albany Great Danes this week.
Yes.
With the
What a
dominating,
week they had.
they beat Columbia, who had been undefeated. Final score was 15 points, and it wasn't even that close.
For much of the game, the margin was between 20 and 30, and sometimes it was closer to 30. What a performance by Albany. Now, if Rocco was here, he could tell you about, the nine-man rotation in its totality and how they like to switch defenses at the under 16 timeout in the second half, and a lot of things that I just can't speak to. But what I can speak to is after a bit of a blah start, I'd go so far to say, Chad, is that they're looking as good as anyone in this else in this conference. That includes Lowell and that includes Vermont. That was an impressive, dominating victory over a team that had been playing very well.
Yeah, I'll tell you this week, Vermont not showing me much losing at home to Brown. Lowell
Yeah,
not showing me much losing the game to Central Connecticut. Who showed me something? Maine, three
yeah,
wins. Elon Navy and well, a non-D1 win, but Elon and Navy back on Friday and Sunday.
yeah.
Bryant uh, with the win at Drexel this week. Those are the teams that showed me more, which I really think, there's a chance we could have a wide open America East this year and not just have Vermont run away with it. At least
I,
that's what the numbers are telling us so far.
I'm starting to agree because it's not going to be Vermont and then one other team that's sort of chasing them that isn't quite as good but is able to keep pace because they're better than everybody else. It seems pretty even. And while Vermont probably does have the highest ceiling, they have not played up to it so far, but Albany has. And you mentioned Bryant as well. How about Maine? Four D1 wins already.
Four D1 wins. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this main team, we were set to keep an eye on them a little bit this season. I don't think we thought for the top of the conference, but
Yeah,
uh, but they could be up there.
yeah,
It so this could be interesting. We've got a few more weeks of non-conference play
yeah,
uh coming up here. Albany with a road trip to BU and an old America East
yeah.
game, no longer America East, but used to be. And
Hmm.
then Griggs, maybe can we say it? Tuesday night, Albany at Syracuse.
Um,
Could it happen?
oh, probably not, but maybe. Oh my God, it would be incredible.
I'll also throw in there. We've got Lowell at UMass on Saturday.
That probably will happen. UMass is, we love Angry Frank, but oh my God, are they a tire fire?
and don't forget Brown and Bryant, one of those Rhode Island
Oh yeah, the
rivalries coming up
Ocean
here.
City, yeah,
Ocean State tournament. One of the
yeah,
Ocean
the
State
Ocean
tournament
State
games.
Tournament.
There we go.
Uh,
Uh,
Bryant won that. No, it was Brown, wasn't it, that won that year?
Brown won the Ocean State tournament the one year. We have to track the
Yeah,
results on.
yeah,
Uh, wasn't quite a mythical. That was pre-mythical conference days, I think.
yeah.
The Eight Sun Conference. This is on the other side of that Eight Sun SoCon Challenge, which is not looking so good, and I don't even know, Griggs, that there's much I could talk about in this league at the moment.
Yeah, Austin P. I was very excited about them, and while the win at Butler was really good, especially with how Butler has played since then, Austin P. has not been really good since then. Kind of a disappointment.
The
Uh,
one team
it,
that I think is coming on it is this
it
Lipscomb
is
team.
Lipscomb, yeah,
Yeah.
Lipscomb, and we do have to talk about them. If you pull them up. Which is my like code for pulling them up. 6-4 overall. The Kentucky loss is you just kind of got to throw it out of the window. They didn't exactly get blown off the floor by Arkansas. I don't want to get carried away and say that it ever looked like they were going to win at any point in that game, but they were competitive and they played well. And Western Kentucky, they were right in there. And then Belmont, the Battle of the Boulevard, you might recall, Chad, had a wide open alley oop that just went about half an inch too tall that would have ended the game with a win there. So they actually, not to like brag on the games that they've lost, but they've been playing really well lately. And then to go to Chattanooga and do what they did on the road to a Chattanooga team that we were pretty big on, that got my attention. I think that when you look not just at what they did in their most recent game, but you look at what they've done all year, you realize this Lipscomb team is good.
Yeah, they are, and I think they are a real good shot at winning two of their next three.
Yeah.
Truett,
Yeah.
McConnell, and Asbury. Sandwich, though, between a fascinating game December 19th is still more than a week away. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
game next week, though. At Middle Tennessee, that's a fascinating game coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
Between two pretty good under the radar programs.
Yeah.
As far as this week goes in the ASUN teams, here's the games, and uh,
Not a
man,
whole lot of action. A
uh,
lot of schools getting in the final
oh, North
exams this.
Carolina's going to Queens on Tuesday night.
Oh, they are. Look at that. North Carolina going to
Carolina U.
Queens. Carolina U, the Tar Heels going to Queens. All right.
Right. Well, shout out to North
Yeah.
Carolina. Taking on
Right.
a big road to test there. Austin P at Samford Sunday. Maybe circle that game as a pretty good
Yeah,
game.
as Sanford should win that one based on how those two have been playing in the last week or two. So,
Jumping over to the Big Sky Conference, and just when we were all in on Northern Colorado,
yes.
yes, they lost to Texas Tech, understandable. But then they lose by double digits at home to St. Thomas as part of the Summit League Big Sky Challenge Series. And that shocked me last night. That was probably the most shocking result I thought in this conference last night.
Yeah, in this
But a day
conference
when
and
and one day when everybody was in action with the
right.
off challenge series there.
Um I know our viewers follow under the radar. Some idiot on Twitter was talking about how uh the Creighton home win over Kansas could not have possibly been more shocking. It wasn't even that wasn't even nearly as shocking as the St. Thomas the transitional team going to on the road against a Northern Colorado team that had managed itself pretty well and just getting the win. And
I'll tell you
I
the other shocking win though out of these games, all these games last night were the first round of this Summit Big Sky Challenge. We won 5-4 the Summit. There's still nine more games to come later in the season. But Idaho going on the road, I didn't expect much out of Idaho at all this year. We were expecting Kansas City to be at the top of the Summit League. That
yeah.
win also shocked me a bit.
Yeah, it did. And Idaho hadn't really shown any signs prior to that of being able to do much of anything.
It's their
They were
second
very
D1
much,
win of the season. It's their second
yeah,
D1 win.
yeah, they were very much living up to our low expectations. Um, is anybody you sort of look at Montana? I just don't. No one really excites me, and I hate to say that about this league because normally this is a really fun and compelling league, at least at the
Well,
top of it.
well,
Uh,
I do look at Montana. It was at home, but they beat South Dakota State last night.
yeah. Um,
And South Dakota State,
it,
although Kansas City was expected to be the best team in the Summit, South Dakota State
South
had been
Dakota
this best
State
team.
has been, yeah. So I guess you got to give a shout out to Montana if you have to give a shout out to anyone, but collectively, I think the Big Sky's kind of disappointed me this year. It's not as good as we typically see, at least not at the top.
Yeah, no, but I don't know if maybe I would have been saying the exact opposite though. Had Northern Colorado won last night, it's just suddenly
Yeah, we could have been.
the one team that I was circling, I'm just kind of on, and I look at Weber
Yeah,
State with only two D1 wins. I look at Eastern
yeah, and
Washington with only
Eastern
2 and
Washington
7.
having a great year in those new Wazoo uniforms they've got. Uh,
Coming up this weekend, here's the games we've got. I guess are these more part of the Summit Big Sky Challenge series? I think they might be. Uh,
they appear to be because there's a lot
yeah,
of Summit Big Sky in
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, we
yeah.
there ends up being a total of 18 games here for the men, another 18 games for the women in this challenge
Yeah.
series. If the total and games, whether you win at home or road, has different point values. But if
Hmm.
it ends up being a tie, they go to point differential between all games combined. And if that ends up being a tie, Griggs, what's the final tiebreaker?
The commissioner's arm wrestle at the final. Is it the final four?
Final four. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, that's
I
not
can't
that we're
figure out
not
what other
we're
event
not
that
we're not
both
making that
commissioners
up.
would be
That
at. Yeah, we are not making that up. We make a lot of things up. We're actually not making that up. That is written into the agreement.
all right. That's the upcoming games for the Big Sky, though. I guess we can circle Montana at St. Thomas actually Saturday. That becomes a very interesting game off of St.
Yeah.
Thomas's win at Northern Colorado. Now Montana heads there. Uh, let's jump to the Big South Conference, where the story so far this season had been High Point. But
Oof.
they went to Greensboro, and I mean that kind of shocked me. I thought, I mean, Greensboro is a decent team, but I thought High Point would be able to win there.
Right. And then suddenly it just changes the kind of complexion of High Point because you look at them and while they're an under the radar team, you realize they have done almost nothing away from home. Um,
They've done nothing outside of Tier 4 so far, Grizz.
yeah. And the one game that Missouri State is pretty respectable, but they really needed to win that Greensboro game and didn't get it. So, uh, yeah, you start to wonder. And is there anybody else in this league? Longwood kind of got off to the good start, but it was a similar story. Is someone else, sort of jumping out at you a little bit, other than maybe High Point? And is it Radford?
Is it Radford? I mean, Radford, you get to get the extra points from this week. They went for got picked up a road win, but it was at St. Francis. It wasn't
Yeah,
really notable that much,
Yeah,
in
they
my
didn't get
opinion.
a notable win. It's more, it was more of a fortune built with nickels and dimes, and I don't even want to say it's a fortune than it was with a singular big win. But you pull them up, and they've got the two road wins, and
They have no bad losses. I mean,
yeah,
no
no
bad
bad
losses.
losses. Now Pittsburgh and Clemson did blow their doors off. But I think that what it is, Chad, is they're one of their more recent games before the St. Francis road win. Beating Purdue Fort Wayne on a neutral floor, I thought was pretty strong. Purdue Fort Wayne probably the best team in the horizon, or at least we expect them to be.
Well, we'll get to what Purdue Fort Wayne did today a little bit.
Uh, if you really want to,
They
we
did
can get to
yesterday a
what
little
they
bit.
did today when we cover the
Yesterday
horizon.
actually, but yeah,
Yeah.
um, but anyhow, you know, Bradford does have road games at Utah and Colorado State left. I don't,
Hmm.
and at South Carolina. Heck, they sweep all three of those.
Yeah.
We could talk bubble talk with Radford at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. If they get all three of those, yeah. So,
Not that that's going to happen ever.
right.
Um, all right, let's take a quick look at the upcoming schedule. What have we got coming on the Big South this week? If we want to talk Radford, they're at NC Central. If we want to go back and talk High Point, they're hosting North Texas on
A
Friday
very
night.
good North Texas team, a live wire North Texas team.
Mhm.
I kind of think even though they're at home and it's really High Point has certainly been very good at home. That's a hard game to win. They beat UAB at home. I'm starting to value more te North Texas more. I know that I think that that might actually be a more difficult game at this point.
Right. Next
That's the game to
conference
watch.
Next conference we have is the Big West, and this is a conference that I almost chose
Oh
as our
yeah,
feature conference. I decided to save it for a week when Rocco is Miller is with us because
yes.
I know he loves this conference too. Uh,
Uh, it's just a
but
great league.
but look at these. I mean, UC Irvine, one of I think 8 or 9 undefeated teams left in the entire nation, beats Kent State and Towson this week, as
Yeah,
well as who was the third team they beat out of that event? It
it
was
Kent State Townsend.
Kennesaw.
Yeah, oh yeah, Kennesaw. Okay,
To
and
take the yeah, at the event that Rocco was out there calling at the Western Slam. UC Santa Barbara though also off to uh, a pretty good start here this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, the whole conference, relatively speaking, is off to a pretty good start. Hawaii did not get it done at Grand Canyon last night, but they were actually a little more competitive than I thought they would be, considering they were on the mainland. Even teams like Cal Poly have shown moments of being really strong and nearly knocking off some pretty
I'm
good Power Four schools
I'm going to
in
throw
road
another
bye
team.
games.
I'll throw
And
another team out there.
how about the transitional? Yeah, the UC
No,
San
no longer
Diego.
transitional, fully eligible. They are postseason eligible this year,
Are they
Grizz.
really?
Yes, they are. They've completed their transition. UC San Diego could be in the NCAA tournament if they get the auto bid or an at-large bid,
Uh,
which is unlikely. But
well,
they took San Diego State to the wire.
they did.
Only loss was the Seattle game. They beat a decent James Madison team. They beat a LaSalle team that's going to be playing for the Big Five championship. They beat Toledo, a Ohio Max school. I like the way this Triton team is playing.
Oh, I love, and they got a huge game tonight against Santa Barbara. Now, if they win that game, I mean, maybe to call them a team that'll make a run at the bubble would be overstating it. But what a statement win that would be if they get by UC Santa Barbara tonight.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't have a scoreboard in front of me, unfortunately, as we record this, so I can't tell you where the game's. It probably hasn't even started. It's only
It
five.
hasn't started yet.
Okay. Yeah,
It's not even 7 o'clock in the West.
yeah.
And
It's about
Rocco will be at
9:45 East
yeah.
right now. Yeah.
Rocco will be at that game. Rocco Miller at that game while he is covering San Francisco St. Louis. It's amazing what Rocco is doing. He couldn't make the show tonight. He's just at 3 or 4 different games, mostly Big West.
There's the rest of the upcoming schedule here. Santa Barbara, that UC Cidio game that all you, as you're watching this, are going to know what happened to that game. We don't.
Yeah, but
Uh,
by the time this is posted, it will be final.
there's the rest of the games in the conference. But let's jump right on over to the Coastal, uh, where
Yeah,
uh, um,
not much. So, Chad, College of Charleston was kind of the team that I was touting, and I still think that they have perhaps the highest ceiling or one of the highest ceilings. But when you look at them, the sparkle doesn't seem to be as bright as it did. I don't know if what's changed or if it's just I was overvaluing it or what. But all their wins coming on their home court, and they've had some losses that were, shall we say, less than great. Getting blown out at Rhode Island. I wasn't. That is a hard game to win, to be fair, but that looked like a MEAC result.
you know what? I can overlook that if they're able to bounce back. They've got a game at St. Joe's coming up.
Yeah,
And then they've also got Oregon State coming up. And well, actually, that one, that's they're going to be out there in the Diamond Head in a couple
yeah,
of
they're in the
weeks.
diamond head.
So they got a chance to pick up some nice wins there. I'm not writing them off yet, Griggs. I think this is the best team in the conference. That may have just been a fluke, that Rhode Island game.
Yeah.
Um, but because who else would you look at in this league?
Uh,
Hofstra has disappointed a bit.
yeah,
Uh,
Hofstra, I mean, they've had good moments, but they've had bad hours.
they lost to Tarleton last weekend. This past weekend was
A
very
really bad
disappointing.
loss there. Kind of disappointing. A league that's always been kind of fun to watch and that I always thought deserved more attention than what it gets. But this year, uh, not. Yeah, it's hard to make that argument this year.
I mean, maybe the team who had a pretty good week this week actually was UNC Wilmington.
They
Wins over
did.
Sam Houston, App State, and a road win at East Carolina. This might be the
Yeah,
other team here to look at.
yeah. In East Carolina, while not top level by any means, had gotten off to a good start and was very strong at home. So I mean, I think they deserve quite a bit of credit for that East Carolina win. Yeah, that's a good call, Chad.
I'm not sure. It's showing that that Hampton, North Carolina A&T was a conference game. I'm not sure if it was or not. Or well, I'll have to double
Yeah,
check that after
they
the show.
definitely played. Our data is saying that it was because they're in the same conference. They played. I don't.
Yep.
I think you're right. I don't know if it counted as a conference game
Yeah, I
because
don't
it
think
was
it
part of
wasn't
a.
right. And we'll
Yeah,
have that update next week. That was something that we didn't catch when we were putting together these standings. Uh,
yeah,
Anyhow, with the rest of the upcoming schedule here, first in this conference, we've got Charleston at St. Joe's. We mentioned that game already.
yeah.
Wilmington
St.
hosting
Joe's
Mar
also
hoping to
going to Hofstra, their Long Island branch.
St. Joe's of Long Island tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Uh, Wilmington, we just mentioned their game. I think they just had the one game on there. Yeah, they do. They're hosting Marshall this weekend.
Hmm.
That's a very winnable game, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is.
Conference USA. This was our feature conference last week, I believe.
Hmm.
Uh, and promptly Louisiana Tech, who we were praising last week. Oof.
They
Now they
lost.
played well. They played well last night
They
against
did.
Memphis. They were in there,
They
but
did, and they
what?
were in that game, and they really like for about 35 minutes they were right in there, and they didn't get blown out at all. But it took Memphis, a very good and deservedly nationally ranked Memphis team, a long time to get a hold of that. But the other issue was the home loss to Southern, and I don't know if they were looking ahead. That is no offense to Southern, a game that if you're talking fringe bubble, which we were with them, you got to win. You cannot lose that at home.
I agree. That was one of the results that shocked me the most of any
Yeah,
game,
right.
including Kansas Creighton over the past week here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, it was just inexplicable, and you got. We say you got to have some big wins. Well, if you're under the radar, you got to win the little ones too. Liberty, who you have up there,
I love this profile right now. I
yeah.
really do.
The only loss coming to Florida Atlantic in overtime down in the Charleston Classic Invitation, whatever the hell they're calling it these days. But
That was the Field of 16 event, but it was in Charleston, yes.
yeah, the road win at Seattle is nice. The neutral win against McNeese is going to look pretty good at the end of the year. McNeese kind of disappointing now, but this is a team that's still going to win about 25, 26 games probably. But the one win, and I know we just kind of crapped on them a little bit, but how about that win at College of Charleston? Just
Uh,
blowing them out of their own
and don't
arena.
forget, it's also in tier three right now. It'll be Kansas State, and that's going to become a tier two by the end of the day, just because of who Kansas State is going to be playing
Yes.
as the season goes on. Not that I don't think Kansas State's very good, but they're in
Yeah,
that Big 12. They beat a Big 12 team. That
right.
says something too.
And Liberty, you start to look at their schedule and you figure, at Louisiana Tech is pretty hard, and just going on the road in general can be tough. I'm seeing a lot of wins. 27, 28. I mean, you start to count like where or will they even lose two or three more the rest of the way they've been playing.
I'll tell you what, I did pull up Middle Tennessee on the right there, Griggs. I kind of like the way this Middle Tennessee team is looking so far. Also, you can't
Mhm.
really circle any of these wins as great, but I don't think there's anything wrong with losing to a pair of Missouri Valley Conference teams. The
Yeah.
next couple of weeks, they're going to be involved in a lot of miles here because they've got
Yeah.
games against teams like they're so far away from them, like Belmont and Lipscomb and all the way to Knoxville for Tennessee. Yeah, that's not a lot of
Yeah.
travel, but actually a lot of pretty good games. A lot of good games are actually Belmont, Lipscomb, and Tennessee coming up.
Yeah. And if they win if they win two of those three,
If they win at Tennessee, it's a different story. Yes, not
Tennessee
gonna
will
happen.
likely on Monday, in about 96 hours, Tennessee will likely be the top ranked team in the country.
They are number one in the net right now.
I mean, it's becoming a pastime. Everybody's doing it. They beat UAB
Oh, yeah,
on
fine.
the road. Yeah. So,
Okay. And anyhow, let's go ahead and pull up the upcoming schedule here. There we go. Middle Tennessee Belmont. We mentioned that. Liberty hosting Mississippi Valley. But
yeah.
Saturday, New Mexico State at New Mexico. Big
Yes.
rivalry game.
Big rivalry. That one has a tendency to get a little heated sometimes. Um, Kennesaw State, Georgia State is just kind of a fun little matchup. It's I mean, again, it's not a huge rivalry, but typically there is some energy around it. If you tune in, you're going to be like, oh man, this is a fun game to watch.
It's actually some good regional rivalries here. We got Louisiana Tech at Louisiana. We got
Yes, that's
uh,
actually a big one.
we got
Uh,
Jacksonville State at South Alabama. Teams aren't that far apart,
right,
geographically
yeah.
at least.
So. But yeah, New Mexico State at New Mexico. You don't want to rehash that one too much, but oh my God, is that one huge? Is that perhaps there's very few Power Four major quote unquote rivalries that are as bitter as that. There's certainly a lot bigger, depending on how you define a rivalry by importance. But that one is. They might hate each other as much as anybody other than BYU, Utah, New Mexico State, New Mexico, and that is not hyperbole.
No, that's you're probably dead on there. Uh, here's the Horizon League. Uh, and Griggs, you wanted to sell me on Purdue Fort Wayne, and I highlighted what they did today against a Detroit Mercy team that won what, two games off last year?
Well, not many teams more than triple their win total from one year to the next, and Detroit
Well,
Mercy doubled it today.
we are four games into conference play, Griggs, and when I look at the standings, I don't know if we're going by alphabetical order after conference standings, but the top two teams in the Horizon League right now, according to this screen, are Detroit Mercy and IUND. Uh,
Yeah,
would
it's bizarro world.
I mean, take a picture of this one, post it.
Yeah,
It's completely upside down. If you had told me these two teams were only gonna their only wins all season in conference play were gonna be the games against each other, I would not have been shocked, honestly. So
yeah.
this is crazy.
The Horizon League always a fun league, and it will be again this year, but a bit of a disappointment out of conference. Even by Horizon League standards. I think that we're going to see this conference lower on the seed list than what we typically do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could throw in here a couple of things. Oakland with a nice win this week at Toledo in non-conference play, and then followed it up with a win over Wright State tonight.
Yeah, a real nice win against Wright State tonight. So Greg Campy, they had the great run last year, as you might remember, but lost a lot of pieces from that team. But again, having a good week and talk about a guy that can really develop players.
Also throw in there, Youngstown State does have the only conference road win so far. Their win at Morris Robert last night,
Penguin
and
fever. I don't want it to go away.
yes, it was over Morris Robert. Do
Morris
not spell
Robert,
the name
yes,
wrong.
yes, there they are in their game against Cornell.
Yes, Morris
Uh,
Robert. Uh, just like it says on the screen.
yeah,
Upcoming this week, Riggs. What have we got? Can we get some
well, let's see.
schedules up here? We've got uh
Yeah,
let's
we're
see
in
here.
the conference
IUND hosting
play.
Northern Kentucky. We This is all this early conference play here. We got Detroit is going to be hosting Wright State.
Yeah,
Youngstown hosting Oakland. Big game Saturday, actually.
yeah, and you're seeing not all, but some of the travel partners go at it. IU Indy are at PFW, Milwaukee, Green Bay. Not sure why Marshall and Wright State are playing, but um, one of the things is with the inflated conference schedule, they didn't want to start conference play during the Christmas holidays. So I kind of like this. It's kind of fun seeing some conference games early on. I actually sort of like that. A lot of people do not. They don't like the idea of having conference play interrupted, but I've got no issues with it. Football does it all the time.
I want to go back to the results page for 1 second here from last night. The other conference game, IUND beating Green Bay. What a start to Doug Gottlieb's risingly
Yeah.
coaching career.
Yes.
Losing a game against one of the worst programs in Division One over the last
Yes.
several years.
hmm And who, in the top 330 of the net this year. So
Ivy League. We talked a little Princeton earlier, but
yeah,
we
we
talked
did.
about the fact that Columbia lost that game. So what do you want to go with here, Griggs?
Well, like to talk a little more about Princeton, a really nice win against St. Joe's, and I know that
And how about a shout out to Xavier Lee with the first triple double in Princeton history since they've been keeping that stat. I say since they keep that stat because Bill Bradley probably had a dozen of them back in the day
yeah,
when they didn't keep all the stats. But Xavier
right,
Lee a triple double in this game too. Amazing performance for Princeton.
yeah, and I guess I mean I just got to ask, they were slow out of the gate. Are they up to speed now? And is Princeton going to be the Princeton we thought they would be, or that I thought they would be?
I think they
And,
are. What I saw in that game, it tells me that this team
yeah,
is now ready to go.
yeah, and if you pull them up, like they have three losses, and some of those were disappointing, and but they weren't while they were
Awful,
setbacks,
not
were
awful
any,
at all.
yeah. And I think I was more concerned by their overall, like barely beating Duquesne and barely beating some weak teams. The game at Furman is huge. They have a game against Rutgers coming up. The opportunities are there. They really are. And if this is a top 50, top 40 team, which we thought they would be coming into the year, the chances are there for them to establish that still, despite the they didn't make it easy on themselves losing a couple of those games, but the opportunities are there.
Yeah, and there is, there's competition here in the Ivy League. Still think Yale's going to be competitive. We know Columbia is going to be. Uh,
Yeah.
you may get some competition. Dartmouth picked up the win at Boston College. It followed it up with a Granite State rivalry win
Yeah,
over New Hampshire this week. So maybe Dartmouth has a little life even this year.
yeah.
Even though their metrics are, you win at an ACC school and you're still 309 in the net. That says something
Yeah.
about who you beat. But
Yeah.
Cornell with the road win at Colgate. Colgate, the perennial powerhouse in the Patriot League. So
hmm
I think there's a little life to this Ivy League this year, and I think
I'm starting to think so too.
it's going to be a heck of a battle for those top four spots. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Uh, Top four teams make it into the Ivy League.
Yeah,
Ivy
into the
Madison.
Ivy Four, which is that's been a fun event. I still sometimes wonder, and I kind of like that only four get in.
We've got here Brown at Bryant Friday and followed by Rhode Island at Brown on Tuesday. It is Ocean
Well,
State
Ocean
week,
State
Griggs.
week, yes, it is.
A
Oh,
few other games there. Penn and Drexel. That is a matchup for fifth place in the Big Five.
Yeah.
I don't know what else we could say here. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
Metro Atlantic.
oh,
Uh,
oh,
Fairfield
oh.
with the first conference win. That is an actual conference game tonight. That was the first game of the conference season. They beat Ryder tonight. I
Yeah.
don't know if we have any other finals in yet, but uh,
Uh, Quinnipiac continues to sort of disappoint. Marist has shown some signs of life, I guess. St. Peter's with a nice win. Forget who was he
at
against.
Duquesne.
And Duquesne, well, okay, not so nice, I guess. Um, I,
You're talking about
I
this week? Or
don't. Yeah,
yeah. That's their best win this
yeah.
season. So
It seems like normally this isn't a very strong league, but you know, you often see somebody jump out and do really well. We thought it would be Quinnipiac, and it still may be once we get in the conference play, but I just haven't seen much, Chad.
Quinnipiac loses by 14 at Stonehill. I mean, we love
Yeah,
the Stoners, but you got to
good.
win that game.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, this is a conference that may be on its way to Dayton, unfortunately.
Yes, I think so. I do. You're right. That's where it's going to end up.
But we continue with conference play this weekend. It's just the one game today, and now I guess with the uneven number of teams in the conference, he kind of throws things off a bit here. But there's the rest of the
Yeah.
conference coming up here. Um, so we'll see what happens. Early
Yep.
conference play again in this league.
Yep.
Uh, Continuing on though, real quick here we will move over to the Mid-American Conference. Actually, this is a good conference, and I think
Yes,
we got to talk about this Kent State team.
we
You know,
do.
they did not beat Irvine, but they got a couple wins up there in the Western Slam,
Yeah,
and
they did.
I
And
really like this team.
I do too. And if you pull them up, I do think UC Irvine is whether their profile gets there or not. I'm guessing that if an under the radar team is going to do it, or if a few are going to do it, UC Irvine will do it. And it was sort of I mean, it was a rock fight, is what I called it. I think Rocco was describing that game on the air as he was calling it as a rock fight. The other loss was to Auburn. Now, I realize you look at that final score, Chad, and you're like, okay, Auburn just sort of didn't sweat them at all. They didn't, but that score is not indicative to how competitive Kent was in that game for about 25 minutes. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree, and they got one more very big test. Don't think they can win it, but let's see how well they play in a couple weeks at Alabama.
Yeah. Alabama really on a roll. But yeah, this is the team that kind of impresses me the most. I think they win the next two going into that. And as big as we were on a lot of teams, or at least as I was coming into
How
the
do you think
season,
they do it? Briggs, how do you think they could do it December 29th against the Hindenburg?
I think they're going to blow it up. Oh God, I'm going straight to hell. I can't. Oh, it's just going to explode into flames.
Cut you off before bad.
Oh, okay. Um,
I've lost it. Go ahead. Whatever you want to say. Talk about another team. Um,
Um, kind of overall a little disappointed in this league collectively. Ohio U was a team that I was really thought going to be good this year. They have not been. Um, has anything else, has anybody else other than Kent kind of excited you at all?
I was very excited by Central Michigan. They went on the road against a non-D1 team today. They went to Aquinas and won the game. That's the second team that's gone on the road to a non-D1 team this year. Uh, but
Yeah,
nothing else has stood up besides Kent to me in this conference so far. Really, I have been kind
yeah.
of disappointed, but there's time for these teams still. I don't
Hmm.
think for the bubble, but I think for to help strengthen this league at least. And not
Yeah.
much in terms of schedule this year, other than Saturday, Buffalo St. Bonaventure. That is
Yeah.
a Western New York Big Four game.
Yeah, one of the big four rivalry games. You like that still goes on. The Bonnies not having a bad year this year, so they should be able to get that one,
But not under the radar. So we're
but
just
not
gonna move
under the
on.
radar. Yeah.
Over in the MEAC,
Whew.
um,
We do have
I
to talk about Norfolk State.
Norfolk State with a winning D1 record. They won at
Yeah.
Stony Brook this week. I like this team. I
Oh, I
mean,
like
not.
them a lot.
I mean,
Like
look at their net of 123. You don't see that type of net in the MEAC
you
ever.
don't. And when you look at their profile, They won at UC Davis, won at Hampton, as you mentioned, won at Stony Brook. So three D1 road wins. A lot of P4s don't have that yet. And the losses, real competitive against Stanford. They went out to Stanford and they almost beat them.
Hey,
So,
what the,
yeah, it's hard to not like this Norfolk State team.
so next Wednesday night, Griggs, Norfolk State at Baylor. Are you going to take it? You going to call it?
No.
Okay. I do like the game against Hofstra coming up this weekend. It's a
Yeah, I
home
do
game.
too.
That's
It's a
real
home
interesting.
game, and Norfolk can win that one.
So that's I don't really think there's much to talk about with the rest of this conference. We've got three teams without a D1 win yet even here. But upcoming schedule. We mentioned Norfolk State. I don't know what else to talk about in this league. I
Yeah,
think we should
and
probably
not a
just move
whole
on.
lot. Coppin State and
Bunch of
Maryland
bye
Eastern
games
Shore
on here. Yeah.
duking it out for the centenary could be an exciting battle. A game that we might be covering, paying very close attention to when those two go at it for centenary award purposes.
Worst team in D1 wins our centenary award every year.
Yeah,
Missouri Valley Conference is not going to be giving us our centenary award winner, but it
not at all.
does have one of the few undefeated teams in the nation. It's actually down there in the five line because they've not yet played a conference game like some of these other teams have. Uh,
Yes,
but how about
they
this
are.
Drake story, which has been just amazing all year?
Right. As we're recording this, and I don't know if we're going to be just on this topic long enough to get a live update. They are 7 seconds away from winning their first conference game, a road win at Valparaiso. They're dribbling out the clock now. 2-1. The game is over. Drake has won. They are now 8-0 on the year. Another road win. I believe. Oh, that's only their
Let's
first.
see if we get a
Excuse
live
me.
update here, if it's coming yet. And there it is. It
Yeah.
just showed up on the screen there. That becomes their
Wow,
worst win
that
of the
is pretty
season.
good. Yeah. So,
There, now we know. Yep.
yeah, and you mentioned the strength of record 15th. The J and G, a very good metric, albeit like all other metrics, it's early in as far as the data goes, but ranks them 23rd. Welcome the WAB that we talked about, 24th. Chad, this is an NCAA tournament caliber team. At least it's showing all the earmarks of being one this early on. They're into the 30s, I think the low 30s, meaning 31, 32 of the AP and coaches poll. Uh,
Look at
do
that
we want to
24
spend a lot of time on
WAB.
them? What's that?
Look at
I'm
that
sorry.
24 in the WAB metric.
Yes. And we might need to spend a lot of time on them, Chad, because I have a feeling in about 2 or 3 weeks we will not be mentioning them anymore on this show.
Well, it all comes down to what happens at Kansas State.
Yeah.
A little bit more than a week away from now, but if they can pick up that win, and they'll be in the top 25.
Yeah. An incredible story, Drake. First year, head coach, Ben McCollum. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
And a lot of D2 and non-D1 transfers coming in, not much expected of them at all after the great run DeVries had there as head coach. Just a brand new team without a lot of D1 experience. Uh, this is just incredible. I mean, as much as I really kind of despise some things about the transfer portal era, how about this? A collection of non-D1 players that just sort of came together on this island of misfit toys. Uh, tearing it up and on their way to the top 25.
This is amazing. This is a team that I did not think was going to be there this year. Um, this one other team though I think is worth discussing this league though, Griggs. I got
Bradley.
Bradley up there on the
Yeah.
right. Right, only the one loss. It was at Wazoo. They've they've got some interesting games coming up, including San Francisco a little over a week from now, about 2 weeks from now. And they get San Francisco at home, believe it or not. That's so this is a team that I think these two teams could be on a collision course to battle for the Valley. And it may not matter. This could be a two-bid Valley this year.
Oh, it really could be. I think yeah. I mean, when you compare it to some of the teams that are on the Hoops HD report, there's one conference in particular that the Valley is outperforming. And I don't want to shit on the A10 too much, but I mean, it is.
Maybe we should just switch the conferences, do
Yeah,
the
maybe
A10
we
here,
should.
do the
Yeah.
Valley on the other show.
Hmm.
I mean, although I will say that after Bradley and Drake. I mean,
Yeah,
Belmont, Murray are okay. Northern Iowa's been disappointing, and there's not much else to talk about in this league,
yeah. Northern Iowa's been
unfortunately.
very disappointing. I keep waiting for Ben Jacobson, who am I still overvaluing him as a coach, perhaps?
I think at this point he may be closer to the hot seat than anything else,
Yeah.
honestly. Been a little disappointing for several years in a row now.
Yes.
Upcoming schedule, we mentioned earlier that Middle Tennessee Belmont game, but uh, Drake is going to be hosting St. Ambrose, while Bradley doesn't even have a game in the next 7 days. So,
Yeah.
not going to see much movement in this league.
Yeah, and again, we are getting into final exams for the fall semester. Bradley, Drake, a lot of these schools actually do have a high emphasis on academics, and they don't play that week. So guess we should applaud that. Although I don't know, I never understood what academics had to do with basketball and why we always had to worry about it.
I'm moving on. Northeast Conference full of red and postseason eligible teams, but Central Connecticut State, they're at the top. That nice win over Lowell that we discussed earlier, and follow that up, Griggs, last night winning at UMass.
Yeah, Central Connecticut is basically, I mean, we have to talk about them a little bit. They're certainly establishing themselves as being the best team in this conference, at least with how they performed out of conference, and they're outperforming a lot of other uh, teams that are at the top of their under the radar leagues.
I think I could do this. I draw a little line here. Did it work? It
Yeah,
didn't come out very straight, but there's the good teams at the top above that line and the bad teams in this conference below them. So
yes,
yeah, but now
very
I can't
fair.
get rid of that line. But we'll figure out how to do that here in a second. But go ahead, Griggs.
But
There
yeah,
you go.
I mean, it is kind of exciting to see. And then, you know, what line do they ultimately end up on?
Yeah, that's interesting. Could this team get above the 16 line, which is very rare for the Northeast Conference?
Hmm.
Uh, and here's the upcoming games. They are at Holy Cross this week. That is their only game this week.
Hmm.
Not certain what else we're really circling here. Chicago State at St. Louis.
Yes, Chicago State. I'm still a believer that they can take home the trophy. They can make the Final Four.
Uh, uh, their toughest battle this year may be making the top eight and qualify for the Northeast Conference tournament.
Right, beating out those transitional teams.
Got to beat out Lemoyne. Um,
Yeah.
Ohio Valley Conference. Uh,
Oh,
I
oh,
don't even
oh,
know. So
oh, gee
the only
whiz.
win of known the entire conference this year was Morehead State went and won a game at Cleveland State, but you don't even see it on the screen there the day or two before they lost to NJIT. So, uh,
Yes, NGIT again. Morehead State's one of those teams that I say they've had moments of where they're good, but then hours where they're terrible, and it's just uh, that loss alone. When you say Morehead State wins the auto bid, which is assuming a lot, when you start to look at who does and does not belong inside the first four, I bet none of the other teams, none of them will have a loss as bad as that one. That is just season wrecking. And
they went to Marshall last night. They actually played well in that
they
game.
did,
They
yeah,
only lost by three, but uh, you know, I don't know. I'm
yeah.
this is a conference
And
that's easily on its way to Dayton, which is a
it
shame. This
yeah.
conference had went back when it had Belmont and Murray. I mean,
In
this
Austin
was a
P,
half
it was
Austin P heck of a conference. Really
it was
gone
a heck of a
downhill.
conference, and they had a run where, I mean, I think it was 3 years out of four. They had teams inside the bubble. They had Murray State got a 6 seed one year. They got a 7 seed another year. Belmont and Murray, there were years where they sent multiple teams. There were years they sent multiple teams to the round of 32. It is a shell of itself. And yeah, it's on its way to Dayton. Little Rock, who we had major expectations for, has just failed spectacularly.
And they
I mean,
still
what a
probably the best
disappointing year.
and they still have the best profile in the conference. They're the only team that's at least 500 against D1.
Yeah, true. Wow.
Little Rock only has a non-D1 game this week. Moorhead's going to be at Ohio. That's probably the only interesting game in this schedule here. Lindenwood at Ole
Yeah.
Miss, Tennessee State at Western Kentucky,
No.
uh,
Oof.
Tennessee
Oof.
Martin at Alabama State. Go into a SWAC team. That's what
Yeah. I kind of
SWAC
like
teams normally
that.
do bye games. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Anyhow, over in the Patriot League, uh, which historically is the Colgate Conference in recent years. Look who's dead last right there when we look at
Yeah.
overall record grades. It's
Yeah.
the red. It's well, the Raiders, no longer the Red Raiders, just the Raiders.
Yeah. So Colgate, oof, yeah, definitely one of the more disappointing teams. I'm trying to decide who in this conference I like, and it's sort of similar to the Ohio Valley, although this league strikes me because of the rivalries and the parity and home and the way the conference tournament is formatted. This is probably going to be a lot more fun than the OVC. But who do you like? Loyola
Um,
Maryland's had some moments. Americans had some moments. I
Army has had probably had the
yeah,
best win of the week here, that triple overtime win over Lemoyne,
a near
which
quadrupler. Yeah,
yeah, there was a shot that could have gone down. Actually, it was an off balance three that gave Army the lead with th 3 seconds left, and Lemoyne had a shot that just missed that could have sent it to a fourth overtime. We just missed a quadrupler in that game.
yeah. We
Uh,
haven't had one in a long time.
Over 2 years now since our last
Yeah.
quadruple. It was a North Carolina Alabama game back in November of 2022.
Great game.
Uh, that was a great game.
Yeah.
Also not under the radar. But you know what,
Also
Greg?
not under the radar. Yeah.
Strike that. The best team in this conference clearly is American. They beat Notre Dame this week.
Oh, they did. Yeah, Notre Dame going to American to play. Now, granted, it was their medical school, like Notre Dame MD, you see there on the screen. But my God, American just blowing the doors off the Irish. What a horrible year Notre Dame is having.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. That is not what we were looking for. Let me try to find the upcoming games here in the Patriot League.
Well,
There
that's
they
the
are.
yeah, there they are. I was going to
Uh,
say that's the SoCon.
let's see here. Colgate, if we want to talk about them, they're going to be at Northeastern this week. If we wanted to talk Army, they're hosting Cornell. Colgate's also going to Kentucky this week. That will change my tune on Colgate very quickly.
It won't for me. They're not going to win that one.
Okay. Uh,
Okay. Central Connecticut and Holy Cross. Holy Cross better watch out.
let's talk about disappointing teams, Griggs. I'm going to go to the
Okay.
South. I'm going to go to the Southland Conference, and yet again, McNeese, team we loved heading this season, their
Yeah.
fourth loss, this time at home to a good but not a decent but Santa
Y
Clara team. But that's all
y
they are.
that's all they are. And if you pull up McNeese, and everything is relative. And when we say we liked McNeese, we meant we liked them as a team that we thought would be a fringe bubble inside the bubble, very well positioned to win a game in the round of 64 level team. And North Texas, good team. Uh, but a bubble team needs to win that game, especially at home. Illinois State, not bad, but not good either. Well, they did win those, but like Alabama, you can kind of excuse that. Liberty, they sort of needed that one. Santa Clara and South Dakota State not winning either one of those, and we talked about how they had a lack of opportunities, and the opportunities that they did have, they needed to cash in on, and they didn't. They just didn't.
They have no choice to even make the NCAA tournament. They've got to win that last game. They've got to win the
Yeah,
conference tournament, which they will be hosting.
they will
Uh,
be hosting. And to further your point, I think we are to the point to where if they win their next 24 but lose their 25th, they're not going.
I agree with you. I agree with you
Yeah,
completely. I mean, they will have a Mississippi State win if if that happens. That's all
yeah,
they would have.
right,
Um,
yeah,
uh, in fact, though, Griggs, I'll tell you from what I've seen at the court so far, what I've seen on the court and the
yeah.
results, I pulled up UTRGV on the right there, and I think they've played better than McNeese so far this season. I'm going
I
to
think
say it right now.
yeah, I am with you all the way. They have, and they had a nice win the night, I think.
They played, yeah, they did beat Stephen F. Austin tonight. They were right in that Wisconsin game with a shot to win it.
Yeah,
They were not completely blown out by Creighton. They were well, they lost by 20 to Nebraska, but uh, and I got them a great shot in three of their next five games too. I mean,
yeah.
Northern New Mexico, Biblical Studies, and Dallas Christian. I mean,
Biblical studies. My advice to UTR GV, I know they're not used to being in this situation. You might want to make sure Biblical Studies is a countable opponent. You wouldn't
it
want to make
is.
yourself ineligible for the postseason the first time you're ever actually good enough to get there.
They are. Here's the upcoming schedule. McNeese,
Biblical Studies. Oh,
huge game against Litorno.
yeah,
Uh, Incarnate Word at Duke. There you go. If you want to
yeah.
watch a, yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah, if you'd like to watch an execution, Incarnate Word is going to Duke.
The SWAC. Let's see. We got that. I mean, hey, we've already talked about the Southern Louisiana Tech game.
Hmm.
The only other D1 win by the conference this week was A&M beating Presbyterian.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, we continue to see, and this is just the reality. It's really hard to judge who's good in these out of conference games because there's so many road bye games. It's sort of like a power conference in reverse that only plays home bye games. We've seen some good efforts from Grambling. We've seen some good efforts certainly from Alabama State. Um,
I was actually disappointed in Alabama State that they weren't even in that Southern Miss game tonight.
yeah. Oh, yeah. They weren't
81-64.
okay. I'm sorry. Okay, that is disappointing. Now that you point that out. And the other team we really like here, and I'm following their official Twitter account. You say it's a parody, but I don't believe it. This is the
Well, the
official
account
Twitter account.
says it's a parody.
Well, but it also says it's the official account. I am going on the basis that this is Mississippi Valley State's official account.
At MVSU MB ball, I believe it is.
Yes, it's a
It's a
fantastic.
great follow
Yes,
though.
yeah. And it's
From
even more fun if you pretend that it's the official account because they pretend right back that they are. It's great.
this week here, Southern is at Tulsa. I don't know what else to
Grambling
tell
and
you about.
Pepperdine, can they, I mean, as well as they played in some of those games, is that a semi-winnable game for them? Maybe. I'm not
Alabama
seeing.
State has that home game against UT Martin we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Prairie View might be able to win at UAB tomorrow night. Who knows?
Yeah, everybody's winning at UAB this year. It's everybody's in on the act.
The Summit League, with the 5-4 early lead in the Summit League Big Sky Challenge, and already mentioned that huge St. Thomas win at Northern Colorado. Also, North Dakota State picked up a win at Weber State.
Yes.
Uh,
Um, a team that we have a big spot for, a program that we do that we weren't big on this year, but there they are at the top. What about the Yotes playing their way to the top of this underperforming Summit League?
they beat Idaho State last night. I mean,
Yeah,
it was Idaho State,
right. Yeah.
uh, but
I
we already
still
see.
think, yeah, I still
Go
think
ahead.
their in-state rivals, South Dakota State, has shown the most promise so far. They haven't always shown it, but they've certainly shown it more than anybody else. Kansas City, just real disappointing year for them. The Rouge so far.
Yeah, interesting week ahead for South Dakota State, hosting Eastern Washington and then at Nevada on Wednesday.
Yeah.
While St. Thomas, who we just mentioned, is going to be hosting Montana in their next game
Hmm.
coming up here. Montana team that just beat South Dakota State, so I really am
Yeah.
circling that game Saturday, Montana St. Thomas.
Yeah. That is a good one. And how about the Tommies doing well?
Still ineligible though.
Still ineligible. Yeah. Not yet assimilated.
Sun Belt Conference, and we've been talking up this Arkansas State team, Griggs,
Yes.
and
And
not a good week with losses to
not
Rice and
good.
Hofstra. Bounced back tonight and beat Jackson State, but
Yeah, barely. And what in the hell is wrong with
by
Arkansas
two.
State all
Yeah.
of a sudden? Yeah, barely beating Jack State by two. Not beating Hofstra, and not beating Rice. That's just not good enough.
Yeah, no, that's disappointing. And you start saying, well, who else do I even look at this conference? Do you look at an Appalachian State who beat Colgate, but everybody's beating Colgate? Do you
Yeah,
look at a
everybody's
Texas
beating
State
Colgate.
who picked up a road win, but it was against Texas Southern, a SWAC team? I mean, what
Yeah. There is a team that's jumping out at me a little bit. And when you pull them up, it's kind of hard. It's more of an eye test thing. What about the Trojans? What about Troy?
let's go ahead and pull them up here. They are 5-3 on the year.
Yeah,
They
and
lost that home
nothing
game
too
to
impressive.
Merrimack earlier,
Yeah.
but they and they really were not competitive against Oregon or Arkansas. So I don't know,
Yeah.
Griggs. I got to see more out of them.
Yeah, they did
Let's
win
see
the
what they
two road games,
let's see
so
what they do in their next game. They win that one, I'll be on board with you.
yeah, if they win that one,
At Houston.
yeah, the whole nation will be on board.
No, I actually think I like this Troy team heading into the season. I think that they could be there, but
Yeah.
I think this is any shot of a multi-bid Sun Belt. I think has fallen away in the last week or so here.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh, Coming games here. We just mentioned what Troy's next game was. Arkansas State is going to be at Memphis on Sunday. I mean, I don't think they can win it the
Yeah.
way that they're playing, but there it is.
I
I
like that Memphis is scheduling good under the radar teams. Um,
yes,
yeah. So
Louisiana Tech at Louisiana. Let's jump over to the last of our regular conferences, the Western Athletic Conference, where Grand Canyon, we mentioned earlier, did get the win over Hawaii this week.
yeah, got the win over Hawaii. Are they starting to hit their stride, and is there still time for them? I think there is, but not much time. Again, it's always the same sort of story when you're talking under the radar. It's you don't have many chances, and you need those. And when you do get a chance, you have to take advantage. And then if you do get the big win, you can't offset it with too many toe stubs in conference. So the
Uh,
Arizona State loss, we were disappointed at the time. We thought it was a huge missed opportunity, and it was. But is it also fair to say that Arizona State's a little better than we thought they were at the time they beat Grand Canyon?
that I agree with you about Arizona State being better. That UC
UC
Davis
Davis,
game is
oof.
going to be an anchor all season.
Oh, huge
Uh,
anchor. Yeah.
but I mean, this next couple weeks here, I mean, after this Life Pacific game, getting
Yeah.
Georgia and then following that up with a road game at Louisiana Tech, that's your
And
chance
then,
to make your mark. You got to win them
yeah,
both,
and then
though.
you got to win them both, and you got to get St. Louis at home too. St. Louis, another team that's been, that we thought would be a tournament team that's been a little disappointing so far. Rocco Miller, by the way, going to be at all three of those games. We're dispatching him. So
And the Life Pacific game too, probably.
yeah, probably the Life Pacific game as well.
We'll have to confirm that with
I
him.
just yeah, I've got a couple big West games on right now, and I think I see Rocco at both of them. So
Here's the upcoming schedule. The rest of the games, other than Life Pacific at Grand Canyon, um, Southern Utah at Arizona, Abilene Christian at Baylor,
mhm.
California Baptist at San Diego State, Tarleton at UCF.
Yeah, not a busy week, not an intriguing week. You want to like Southern Utah. They're off to like an 8-2 start, not a whole lot of rich history. It's been fun watching them build themselves up. It's just that I don't think that at the end of the day they're going to be able to keep pace with the Lobes.
I
But
don't think so
still
either.
a really good. I mean, this was a centenary award winner that's really built itself up.
Yeah, no, this has become a good program these days.
Yeah.
Let's run over to some mythical conferences. We'll start one other game coming up this week on Saturday is Utah Tech at Utah State. That will be a Beehive
That
Conference
is a
game.
Beehive conference game. Yeah.
And here are our Beehive standings. It is the battle for the old bucket.
Yes. And
Uh,
we've been
no
having to
games
send these
this.
schools a picture of the bucket until we find the actual bucket.
We're not actually any conference games this week, but we mentioned Utah Tech at Utah State. The winner. Actually, this is Utah Tech's second game already. They could put
Yeah.
themselves in a big hole if they don't win this game, though.
Yeah. Real big hole for Utah. Oof. That is a pivotal game right there.
The Front Range Conference is one of the greatest conferences of all time, with Colorado and Colorado State off to the early lead. Uh, and
Yeah.
the two teams will be going head to head on Saturday for first place and a commanding lead in conference play.
Yeah. This rivalry, if you're not familiar with the Front Range or this rivalry in particular, is pretty bitter. In Colorado, both teams having this isn't under the radar, but well, yeah, it is. It's a mythical conference game. Both teams having better years than expected, especially Colorado.
And how about coming up Tuesday at an honorary mythical conference game? UC Colorado Springs at Denver.
Yeah, going to Denver. All right.
Okay, let's take a quick look at the back range down there in Arizona and New Mexico. With Arizona State, we talked about what a good season they're off to go start their after. They are in first place. And
Yeah.
but the big
Oh,
game on Saturday, we mentioned this one earlier.
boy. Yeah.
The winner of
The
this game
alpha
will be
of
able to be
back range rivalries. Wow.
when if New Mexico State gets us, they'll only be half a game behind Arizona State. That's a big one for them.
Hmm.
How about the top range conference up
Yeah.
there in Eastern Washington and Idaho and Montana, where only Wazoo has won a conference game so far, but I think we've got a game coming up
Yeah.
this week. Let me see.
Y-
Yes, Washington
Yeah.
State,
We
Boise
got
State
Wazoo
Saturday.
Boise. Yeah. A future Pac-12 game, I think.
I'll tell you what,
And
Wazoo wins this game. They may wrap up the top range, and it's still only early December.
Yeah, it is. They do have a couple games against Gonzaga coming up in conference play. Wazoo doing very well with those Eastern Washington players from a year ago.
Um, our newest conference, a conference the teams that have never been in the league with each other
Yeah,
until now, but these are all champions, Griggs. It's the conference
right.
champions. A
This
pair
one
of wins
just
here.
Yeah, this league at first when you introduced it, Chad, it just seemed too far-fetched. I mean that a league that a team like Arizona and Oregon would, as far apart as they are, would be in the same league, and then Colorado and you. I mean, it just didn't seem plausible. But I gotta say, do you think this could work if it were an actual conference?
No, we've had some good games. Oregon, a big comeback to win against USC last night in
Yeah,
early conference play. They got the 2-0 start. I think
yeah,
this would
they
be a
did.
great conference if it was no longer mythical. But
Yeah, if it was no longer probably have
I mean,
its own network and
it
everything.
does have the number one team of the J&G in it, the number one team of the WAB there, Oregon. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
impressive.
it could be. The only thing I'm starting to think that could wreck a conference like this would be if they hired an idiot commissioner.
We got three games this week.
Yes.
Stanford and Cal. This is one of the best rivalries of the Conference of
Woo-hoo!
Champions,
Yeah.
followed by USC Washington and UCLA Oregon this week.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on all those games.
Yeah, those are good. UCLA, Oregon, okay, that's not under the radar.
These are all under the radar. What are you
Well, yeah,
talking
they
about?
are. UCLA's been kind of quiet recently, since losing their conference opener. They've not lost since, but they kind of need that one to get a spotlight back on them.
Mhm. Let us jump over to the Hoops HD under the radar top 10
Okay,
lists.
yes.
These are our top 10 teams as voted on by you and I. Start with some teams that did not quite make the top 10. Middle Tennessee. UC San Diego showed up in the poll.
Hmm.
Princeton, Murray State, and Columbia.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
Columbia out of the top 10 this
Yeah,
week,
I mean,
unfortunately, with that
I
loss.
just couldn't vote for you must have voted for them. I couldn't do it after what they had done, but
I voted for them as an honorable mention. Yeah,
as an
thanks.
honorable mention. Okay, yeah.
High Point coming in at number 10. They fell
Number
as well
10,
this week.
yeah, big fall, but still in the poll. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Louisiana Tech,
Hmm.
another team that fell with a bad loss.
Yeah, a real bad loss. Oh,
Kent State,
Kent State getting up there out of the MAC. We talked about them earlier.
UC Santa
Santa
Barbara.
Barbara. I think this is their debut for this season, isn't it? Or is it?
Might
Were they in
be.
there last week?
They
Yeah.
might have been there last week. How about the Lopes? Coming in number
Yeah,
6.
Lopes starting to climb the pole again, moving back up. That means,
Furman
yeah,
at number 5.
Furman number 5,
A tie for third place between Liberty
Liberty very
and
good,
Bradley.
Bradley very good, and then the last two could go either way. These are in. We got to say, Chad, I don't know who's one and who's two. These are two potential inside the bubble or bubble teams. These are both really solid teams.
Number 2, Drake.
Drake
Number
is number
1,
2.
UC Irvine, the Anteaters.
Yep.
That is our top 10 list. Let's go ahead, pull this down. Dick Griggs, do you have any other final thoughts on the night?
Um. Yeah, we mentioned the Centenary Award a couple times. I'm going to revisit this when we have more people on the show. It was the second year where I still think we made an error, and I would like to get that changed. I'll have the screen share. I'm going to try and flip giving it to, we needed to give it to Binghamton instead of Towson in whatever year that was.
Yeah, that was our very first award, and Griggs, you've already been outvoted. But
Yeah. Uh, okay. Chad's gone mute again, so I can. This is a great way to end the show.
Okay. I lost my audio.
anyhow, Griggs,
Chad's audio is unlocked. All right.
my audio went out again. I'll be back on my regular computer in a couple of weeks here. Got a lot of construction going on around me here right now. But on behalf of David Griggs, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you again next week with a Hoops HD report, and probably Wednesday night next week for the Under the Radar.
Yes. All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.